I think what I want to cover is why we have chosen for this year's World Forum on Enterprise and the Environment the topic of low carbon mobility. This sector, the transport sector, contributes a very significant proportion of carbon emissions. So how do we move over the next 40 years, and this is the challenge, towards a fully defossilized economy, including maintaining and improving our ability to move people and freight around the planet? There are actually several good reasons to do that. The first is, of course, the issue of climate change. We now know from paleoclimatology data that the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere today, 389 parts per million, is higher than it's been for the past 850,000 years for sure, and probably 3 million years. I can't overemphasize the importance, therefore, of persuading governments to focus attention on what is going to be a very significant issue as we move into the next decade. Dr. Inderwildi led a piece of work on low carbon mobility, and this report will aid the private sector to take solutions into the marketplace. And that's our real objective. Work with governments on good regulation and the private sector to take solutions into the marketplace.
I think, as Dave, it's really the exactly right time to host a World Forum on Low Carbon Mobility. And the reasons for that we see at the moment in the Gulf of Mexico. International oil companies try to satisfy demand, and they're more and more going for unconventional reserves and for ultra-deep water oil reserves. And when that goes wrong, you can see that in the Gulf of Mexico right at the moment. There are no silver bullet solutions in the transportation sector. So here we really have to use well-established technologies right at the moment to get a smooth transition to a low-carbon system. We have to act right now. In the transportation sector, we have to calculate with really long lifetimes of fleets. If we're looking at cars, we estimate a 15-year lifetime for a car fleet. In the aviation sector, it's even 40 years. So if you buy a new plane today, it's still flying and emitting in 2050.
We need to make sure that every piece of infrastructure is replaced when it gets to the end of its lifetime by infrastructure that is fit for purpose. It's a little bit fashionable. It used to be hydrogen fuel cells that were going to resolve the transport problem. Now it's electric vehicles. There's an awful lot more research needs to be done on developing rechargeable battery systems for cars. The reason why that sexy looking car, the Tesla, is so expensive is the sheer size and weight of the battery. We're going to launch, by the way, at our World Forum, a new car. It's a petrol-driven car doing 90 miles per gallon, and it has a range of 400 miles. Now, I actually think there's a lot to be said for that over an electric vehicle at this stage of battery development.
And more generally, what's your view on aviation, and can the industry be allowed to grow as it wants?
I think we have to look globally at an issue like aviation, and we need to be careful that we don't make a comfortable national decision that doesn't meet the international, the global demand. We also feel that emphasis needs to be placed as we move forward in the near future on what can be done for freight movement by air, that is freight that has to be moved quickly, using lighter than air craft. Right? So we're making virtually no use at all of the oldest flying technology around.
I feel embarrassed at something that's talking about the future of mobility when to get here I've had to catch a bus, a train, a motorbike and a car.
I just wanted to ask, I was interested in your comment on the role of the private sector and the potential for climate change issues to be less of a challenge and more of an opportunity.
My view of business is there's a big difference between management and leadership. And what we have is too much management and too little leadership. But if we go to some of the emerging economy players, they're definitely in the leadership role. They don't have a choice, they don't have the energy resources, they don't have the water resources, and they don't have the slow demand growth luxury. And if you want an example of that, go to Windhoek in Namibia, which has rejected Western designs of energy and water systems and gone forward with a system which is suitable for a pro-enterprise, growth-enabled, sustainable economy for Africa.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much to our panel.